So before I share anything on YouTube or with another person, I'm always checking the I Ching, which you may find strange, but I want to be sure that my energy is pure. Be sure that my energy is pure. And so doing a session, a live YouTube broadcast, may be problematic because I don't know who's going to come on and I don't know what to share with them. So those kind of things would have to be very vague in terms of the things I'm talking about. Because I don't know what information people are ready to receive or what would help them. I have no idea walking in. How would I know? I think of an example of a famous psychiatrist who has a celebrity client, Jonah Hill. And Jonah Hill was very sad over the death of his brother, came in for a session, and the psychiatrist took a picture of him in that moment. Now, if you don't understand the context of why he's doing that, it sounds extremely rude and inappropriate. And it took me a while to figure out why he was doing it, even though I understood the concept. The concept he has is called string of pearls. So, you know, each moment in your life, you're there to do something. It's a term, I think, in Marxism called use of production. Like if you're holding a gun, the use of that thing is to shoot it, right? So in this moment, I'm driving, but I also have the technology to record this conversation, and I can do both at the same time, so it's fine. Maybe not ideal, but it's fine. I don't have a lot of free time during the day because I'm seeing patients. I'm a speech-language pathologist. So anywho, so the photograph just symbolizes this is your time for mourning, and it won't always be this time, and that's fine. But my greater point is that you have to be mindful of what information you're sharing and who you're sharing it with and when you're sharing it, and is that audience ready to receive it. So that's why I would always check with the I Ching before I share things with people. So the last video I made was just a general concept of that 4 p.m. in the afternoon, which is I think 3 a.m. in the United States, depending on your time zone, would be the time where I could do spiritual coaching for people. I'm not saying I'm any more spiritually advanced. I just have a system that I think is pretty good, but I always check the I Ching to make sure if I'm saying it is correct or if the information itself is correct. And so on that recording, that idea of sharing in general in some way, I got hexagram 40, which is disentangle. And that's what I'm trying to do with my work, is help myself and others disentangle the movement from the mask and the call to the trial where the mask and the shadow are confronting each other, to the return where there's a tendency to judge the harvest. That relates to Matthew 13, the wheat and the weed. And then the bardo, and then reversing this so that you're called to the bardo instead of the trial. But even if you're called to the bardo, even if you're called to unity and the static feminine and unification and enlightenment, you're willing to return to the trial. If you're not willing to return to the trial, you won't be able to hold on to your awakening. And we have many reports of that happening. So now the question I have is, in terms of how to do this, right? I mean, I want to explore what's an appropriate way, an ethical way, a spiritual way to approach this, because what I see is a lot of spiritual teachers who are trying to be great, trying to be big, trying to be seen. That's their mask. And meanwhile, their shadow's like, why are you bothering with this? This is not having to do with spirituality. This has to do with capitalism. And I'm not saying capitalism is bad. And if I were to take on clients, part of the reason would be to provide income so that I can support my life and support the people who are dependent upon me. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that if it takes over, then it becomes too much yang, mask versus shadow, the trial, and it's problematic for the spiritual growth and for cultivating peace. So the concept that I want to review with the I Ching is that I would just do one client at a time. And if there are clients who live in the Philippines or whatever country, developing world country I happen to be in, then it's free. In fact, I may even pay them for their time because they're taking time away from their family or their loved ones or their work or their leisure time. So why not pay them? Reverse the model where students pay you, you pay them. And then people who see that video, if they're interested, I can tell them, well, I'm going to be online at 3 a.m. your time. If you happen to be awake, feel free to go to the link. I'll put it on my Instagram or wherever I put it. I kind of don't want to have a website for some reason. It feels too, the website feels too pushy or something. I don't know. I mean, not that Instagram isn't pushy, but I don't know. For some reason, it just seems a little bit simpler just to not have a website. So let's say it's done through Instagram. The link is posted and it goes to a live YouTube feed. And if it's just one person, then I can easily check the I Ching to see if it's appropriate to share whatever I want to share with them. And then when two people come on, every time someone comes on, I have to check. And so in a way, I'm kind of working against the idea of building an audience, or at least I'm putting more friction or more work on my part to create an audience. That honors the mask. That honors the shadow. The mask wants to have the audience, wants people to come to me and create community and be seen as the teacher. And that's all fine. That's yang, that's capitalism. But we're putting yin over yang at the call. Otherwise, we're going to have yang versus yang in the trial, right? I mean, we will anyway, but we want to make that trial smooth where the mask and the shadow are both feeling seen and respected. So the mask is, capitalism, get students, charge money, and that's yang. And then the yin is like, well, do you really want to do that? I mean, be receptive to what it's like to have to take responsibility for people's state. If you're going to do that and you're have any hint of Enneagram 9, then you might go numb and try to block out their pain. And you see this with people who work in emergency rooms or war zones or live in those. They're just blocking out the individual because and doctors who see lots of patients every day, they just become a little numb to it. Or they may become judgmental of it. So like a 1 Enneagram. So we're trying to tell them how to fix their problem, which is what psychologists often fall into, even they're not supposed to. So, and I think when you see right now in psychology where people are being more about social justice and prejudice and economic disparity, I think that's all laudable, but that's not the role, I think, of a therapist. The role of a therapist is simply to be receptive, not have an agenda about what's right and what's wrong. But having cultural sensitivity, what's the value in that culture, I think that's good. In any case, I don't want to get sidetracked, and I think I just got sidetracked, which happens. What we're talking about here is you just check on the person who's there and see what they can share. And the fact of the matter is they're probably going to prefer a private session. So, even doing these YouTube things, I think, probably isn't the way to go. It's probably just talking in generalities and doing maybe sessions with people in the Philippines. And they'll keep it a little bit light. They're not going to really reveal anything. But, a client from America is probably going to want to go very deep and reveal things. And so then it would be a private session. I think that's the best way to do it. But it could be a Zoom room where you let people in, and then you can ask the person, we've been talking for free, and now there's someone who wants to come in the room, and you would lose your privacy. How do you feel about that? Are you okay with that, or should we make this a paid session? And then I would let them in briefly, and then tell them they have to come back. So the client controls whether it's paid and whether it's private. And so what is the I Ching reading on that, right? That's what I want to know, because I think it's a pretty good plan, but I want to be respectful and do things the right way and not be snarky or missing something or whatever. And the I Ching reading on that is 55. And I haven't memorized all of the numbers, so we have to check what is 55. And this is where patience comes in, and it's very useful, the delay, because what you're looking at is a situation where you may be attached to being able to do something, being given the permission to proceed, but you're not sure what the I Ching is going to say, and so there's a tension that's created, and in that tension, in that waiting time, you see your attachment. And in some ways that may be more important than even what the reading is. Depends on the reading, of course. So here we are. I'm looking it up on my very worn out piece of paper, because I've looked at it many times. Abounding, fullness, abundance. And I've actually gotten this one before in a similar question, I think. So that means I've got a plan. I have to, write this up. Maybe a website would be good to explain it all. But I'm happy to have found this. Thank you.